Looking today at Psalm 28, and I'm just going to read some of that psalm first of all. It says this in verse 8, "The Lord gives his people strength. He is a safe fortress for his anointed king. Save your people. Bless Israel, your special possession. Lead them like a shepherd and carry them in your arms forever." The ability of God to be a safe pair of hands is something that we need to really recognize out of the Bible, something that we need to get our head around sometimes. So many of the situations that people face every day, so many of the situations that we find ourselves in the middle of dealing with, we find ourselves sometimes just feeling unsafe. We're wondering, who can we trust? We're wondering, can we trust God in this circumstance? What about the financial challenges that might be happening? What about the national challenges that might be happening? What about the health issues that might be going on? And there's this reminder in Psalm 28 about the psalmist's relationship, David's relationship to God, and on behalf of his nation as well, and his particular and special purpose for the nation of Israel. And so he recognizes that in order for them to have this relationship, it requires a level of trust, it requires a level of dependence. It says the Lord gives his people strength. If they are strong enough by themselves, then they're not in any need of receiving strength from God. They're not in any need of looking to him for his enabling capacity. It says he is a safe fortress for his anointed king. Well, if David is in charge and he's able to kind of run the show himself, if he's quite capable in his own authority and leadership to be fully competent and not have any outside help, then there's no reason why he should be looking to God as a safe fortress. But David's recognition is that there's a real need within his leadership capacity to trust God, to depend on God, for the people as a whole to learn to find that place of dependence. And he cries out in verse 9, "Save your people, bless Israel, your special possession. Lead them like a shepherd and carry them in your arms forever." You know, a shepherd provides security for the sheep. There's so much of that illustration used in the Bible. Psalm 23, of course, is one of those psalms referring to that. And then you've got some other psalms too that point to a God as the shepherd. And then, of course, Jesus brings up that theme in John 10 very famously about being the good shepherd. He identifies himself as this good shepherd of the sheep. He identifies himself so much with the shepherd of Israel, the analogy that David is so familiar with in his upbringing, in his earlier life, his experience as a shepherd, his ability to grasp that illustration, which was something that everybody would have related to very easily. The shepherd in the wilderness who leads the sheep carefully, takes them to the right place. They depend on him. They're kind of pretty lost without that kind of guidance and direction, support, safety, protection from all sorts of wild animals, all sorts of risks that would happen. And so he's looking for this sense of security from God, this ability for God's safety to come into play, and this ability for God to carry them as well. This is something very special. If you feel carried as a small child, there's something that's very comforting. There's something that tells you a definite storyline here, that the child who's kind of running off. I remember seeing something the other day. I was in the centre of town, and there was a little lad, and he was kind of a toddler. I suppose maybe he was couldn't have been much more than 2 or so. And he was kind of running through the centre of town a little bit, and I was thinking like, okay, he's so vulnerable. Where's Mum? And I looked around, and at a reasonable distance, actually Mum was there, but her eye was definitely on him and making sure he was okay. She'd given him a little bit of space to run. But there's this knowledge then for a child of that sort that the parent's not far away. Actually, when they get tired, they can go in the pushchair. When they're weary, they can be lifted up. There's a sense of security and safety. And that's what David is looking to from the Lord. He's looking for this real sense of safety for the nation, safety for him as a king. Someone who looks so much in charge, such a warrior, such a powerful guy, such a can-do person, somebody who's got amazing authority, all the rest of it, all the things which seem to make him incredibly effective as a leader. And yet, as that leader, we see with David this constant reference to finding God as a safe place, finding God as a place of safety, finding God as a safe pair of hands that he can really entrust the nation to, and he can entrust his own life to, he can entrust his own decision-making to. I want to pray today that God would help us. I think sometimes, when we need to pray for leadership and realise that they might look terribly competent and they might even seem arrogant in our view, and we might be quite critical of people in leadership, but we also need to recognise that they have so many decisions to make, they have so many things on their plate, and they really need to find God in the middle of it all and have his wisdom, his leading, his safety. We can't entrust everything just into the hands of a leader, political or otherwise, but we need to entrust things ultimately into the hands of God. So my prayer today is that, Lord, you will be a rock to us. I'm just going to use some of Psalm 28, the rest of the psalm, as part of this prayer. So I pray to you, O Lord, my rock. This is in verse 1. Do not turn a deaf ear to me, or to us as a nation, or to us perhaps as a local church, or to us as a city or town where we live. I just want to pray from verse 2. Listen to my prayer, listen to our prayer for mercy, as we cry out to you for help. As we lift our hands towards your holy sanctuary, we recognise our dependence on you, Lord. And I just want to recognise from verse 6 too, the way in which God answers that prayer. Praise the Lord, for he has heard my cry for mercy. The Lord is my strength and shield. I trust him with all my heart. He helps me and my heart is filled with joy. I burst out in songs of thanksgiving. So I pray today that as we turn to him, as we look to him, as we look to that safe pair of hands that he offers, that shepherd that he is, that we will be able to praise the Lord, that we would realise that he hears our prayer, our cry for mercy, that he'll be our strength and shield, that we'll be able to trust him with all our hearts and recognise that he helps us. May our hearts be filled with joy. May we burst out in songs of thanksgiving as we recognise the answer to our prayer is that God indeed is that safe pair of hands. He is indeed the shepherd of our souls, the shepherd of much bigger things too, the one that we can trust. We can entrust our leadership to him, we can entrust our lives to him, we can entrust situations into his hands, and they are safe with him.